Hello everyone, welcome to another video with me, talking geeky stuff. And today's video is about Avatar, the Way of Water. So before I start this video, spoiler alert. So you lot have been warned. 3, 2, 1, spoiler alert. And by now you probably know I like to talk when the trailer is playing, so I'm going to play the trailer. Okay then, Avatar. Avatar 2, I'm going to call it Avatar 2. Bit easier to say. So this one's about 190 minutes or so, 3 hours 10 minutes, and yep, it does feel like you're watching a 3 hour plus movie. I was in the seat kind of moving about. It kind of remind me of a short trip to Europe, somewhere like Greece on the plane. It kind of felt like that. That's not to say the film's bad. First, I have to say the film is. I do like it. Did it have the same impact as the first time I watched the first Avatar back in 2009? I would say no. I think a lot of people will say that because it was the first, I think, if I remember correctly, my first IMAX 3D movie, and still is the best 3D movie that I've ever seen. I mean, 3D kind of lasted a few years, and it kind of faded away, and I think that James Cameron Avatar did it the best and still is the best. Avatar 2, I watched it in 2D, just old-fashioned 2D, none of that 4DX, 3DX, none of that rubbish, all that gimmick. Good old-fashioned 2D, pretty big screen, great sound. So yeah, it's a great film. Like I said, is it better than the first one? Let's find out, shall we? So I did a video about a month or so ago, 2 months now, when Avatar, the first one, got re-released. And I did a video, I said that I actually enjoyed it a lot more. Won't say a lot more, but a little bit more second time. And when I remember watching in the cinema the remake, and I said in the video that James Cameron did a lot on the special effects. He updated it to the current times. When I went home that night, I was watching a Blu-ray, a special edition of Avatar, and you can see the special effects has been updated really well. There's been a lot of movies out there who has like an updated visual, but there's not really much difference. But with the re-release of Avatar, there was a lot of difference. And if those of you did watch the remake or the remastered a few months ago, it kind of prepares you for this one, because the special effects ain't too different. You can see Avatar 2 special effects are amazing. I mean, it should win all the awards for best special effects. I don't think there's any movie in the last few years will ever beat Avatar 2. It is hands down the best special effects movie out there at the moment. So it starts off. I actually liked the first hour. The first hour was pretty good. It was because when I watched the trailer and all the snippets here and there, I was expecting maybe the first 10 minutes, especially after the events of part 1 where the forest got kind of destroyed. They would be kind of like flying in the air, the sea area, and making a new home. That's what I expected. I didn't expect like it happened an hour into the movie. And yeah, I did like the first hour, and I actually liked the second, probably the last 45 or so minutes. The middle bit, that's where I felt it dragged on a little bit. So let's start from the beginning, where it kind of ends. Well, sorry, it starts where the first one ends. Jake Sully, Sam Worthington's like narrating, talking about they send the sky people home. Some stayed, like the scientists, the good ones, and so on. And they're talking about how they have kids. There was a couple of few lazy writing in here where there's a scene where Jake was talking about how he's slowly learning the language, and he just suddenly says, "Oh, it sounds like English," and suddenly the Navi language turns into English for the audience. It reminds me of that Tom Cruise film a few years ago, Valkyrie, when suddenly it just from German to English. In my opinion, I thought he should have did what Mel Gibson done in Apocalypto and Passion of Christ, where they should have spoken in Navi for most of the film. That's just me, though. I know this is more for the audience who doesn't like reading subtitles, but I would love to have seen most of the language in the native language. I know it's a made-up language, but would have been more authentic. I thought, like I said, kind of like a Mel Gibson apocalypto, and then the sky people comes, or the earthlings, and then of course you got English. I was hoping for that. I felt that was a bit lazy, but just me though. And then you find that Grace got knocked up, and her clone or her avatar was pregnant. That's a little bit weird, I suppose. They didn't really talk about who's the father. And then you had this little kid who's running around called Spider, and you find out he's the Colonel's son. What's his name? Stephen Lang's son. One thing about those, you don't find out who Sigourney Weaver's kid's father is. They don't find out who the Colonel's son's mother. I actually wanted to know who the mother and father was. Anyway, maybe that's another story for part 3. And then they're talking about how he had one son, then another son, and then a daughter. He adopts Sigourney Weaver's daughter, and they become a happy family. And then they look in the sky, and you got all good things come to the end. You see a star, and Sam Worthington, Jake, that's not a star, or shooting star, or whatever. It's the sky people's come back. But there's one thing I do like about Cameron's film, apart from amazing action, is his designs, science fiction vehicles, weaponry designs. They are so good, and you can actually see them. It's quite industrial. The designs are. You can actually see them in the next 50 to 100 years' time. I can imagine equipment will be like that in the future. Realistic future. So I do like Cameron's technology design. You can go back to the Terminator, to Abyss. All the designs are always amazing. And second thing is great. Is one of the best, if not the greatest, action director. I've said that in many times. I did a video about James Cameron, talked about how much I love Terminator 2 and these other movies. So the action packed, this is actually got a lot more action than the first one. If you think about Avatar 1, it didn't have really much action until like the last 30 to 40 minutes. This one's pretty good. You have the first bit. There's a few bits in the middle, and the ending as well. Speaking about the middle bit, the reason why I felt it dragged on after the first hour, that's why I thought it was really good. And then before the family kind of exits and find a new home, for example. So the Sky People Earth comes down, and for some bizarre reason, when they land, they practically just napalmed the whole area, burnt down the forests and so on. Excuse me. There's another scene in the scientists. You see they're waking up the Colonel, and now they are all avatars. Some of the soldiers you might remember from the first one got killed. There was a little video showed of Colonel talking to his avatar, saying, "You see this video? I'm probably dead," stuff like that. And they talk about that they can kind of extract their memories and clone them into the avatars, and so they get their memories and so on. And that's how they got Stephen Lang back, and they become like a hit team to hunt down Sully and to get revenge. It was almost like a revenge film as well from that point of view. Anyway, back to the spaceship. They come down, and then for some bizarre reason, napalmed the whole area, and they start building like a city. I felt the city design was quite, I don't know, quite crap, because this is supposed to set far in the future. And when you look at the city, when the kind of a helicopter flies over it, it looks like something like the 1700s or the Industrial Revolution, or this smoke coming out. And I know what James Cameron's trying to do. I mean, it's pretty obvious there's a message here about environment and don't kill the nature and all that stuff. Yeah, which I agree. I'm all for protecting nature. I'm all for protecting wildlife. I'm down for that. Nothing I like more than protecting our world for our next generation. Environment, wildlife, and all that stuff. But this film does kind of hit you over the head a little bit sometimes with it, especially the middle hour bit where I go to that bit in the later on. So anyway, so start building, and the Colonel goes and meets the general of the area, And you can see like boxing in her new kind of exoskeletons, a much more slimmer design, faster, and so on. And then she mentioned something like, "Oh, Earth is dying. Earth is dying, so they have to. Their job is to kind of build cities, so everyone from Earth can come to Pandora." Which I understand is, I understand that if realistically speaking, in reality, if our planet is dying and we know there's a habitable planet over there, I'm all for kind of transferring over there. I'm all for it, building a camp, building a city. But unfortunately, it's not going to go down too well. You've got two species, intelligent species, one native, one's human beings who just literally almost invading. Cause is not going to go down too well. So that aside, so anyway, go to the middle bit. Why I felt it was a bit dragging, because it's kind of almost like a coming of age film as well for the teenage kids. They go to this new place, get accepted by the new tribe, and the teenagers got an eye for the girls, and there's a bit of a bully and playing pranks on the Jake's sons. The second son, for example, is a bit of a naughty one. The older brother's more trying to live up to his father. Spoiler alert again, it's predictable because I knew the second son's going to get in trouble. It's pretty obvious. He gets his older brother killed. I mean, that was very predictable. But as in saying that, it was pretty sad. And it was a shame that the older brother died, because I actually quite liked him. He didn't really flush out his character. He's really kind of like a yes man or a yes boy and so on. And speaking about kids as well, these are supposed to be, 15, 16-year-old. I think the oldest one's about 15 or 16 years old. And they come in contact with, of course, the hit squad, led by Stephen Lang's character. And it kind of made me laugh a little bit, because they was hunting down and trying to kill kids. I mean, they're still technically soldiers, right? They're not mercenaries, if I remember correctly. They're technically still soldiers taking orders from the government. I know it's more like a revenge story, and maybe Stephen Lang's characters kind of got revenge overshadowing his mortality. But trying to hunt down and kill kids, I don't know, man. That was a bit. I don't know. I think Cameron could have done a different way. But I know that the tactics is get the kids, use them hostage to blow out Jake Sully. I understand all that. But there was some scenes where literally fully trained Marines, soldiers, were trying to hunt down kids. I don't know about that, man. I felt that was a bit. I didn't like that part. Of course, then Steve Lang comes up with this idea to try and hunt down these whales. There's a scene where the second brother meets a outcast whale. I won't go into detail about that. And then, Stephen Lang's character takes over the ship. It's more of a fishing ship to hunt down whales. It's almost like a metaphor of what's happening in our world, reality, where unauthorized whale hunting for whatever sort of thing. And this one is something in the whale brain where they can get this kind of yellow goo that can prolong human life or make him live forever. They pay $80 million just for like a liter or something like that. I know there's a message behind don't hunt whales, and which I said, I agree. Let's protect our wildlife, but it got to the point where it almost kind of hits you over the head with it, which I didn't like. But that's one of the few negatives I didn't like. Another thing I thought it was quite a bit bad. See, James Cameron is a great director. One of my favorite action, special effects, cinematography, sound, coloring, lighting. He's one of the best. He is not that good at writing dialogue. There was some dialogue in here which I thought was kind of made me cringe, even made me laugh. I know it wasn't intentional, but Cameron's just not the best at writing. I think he could have, said to his writers, this is what the scene to be, and let the writers write it for him. I think something like that. So some of the writing can be cringy, a bit almost comedic, which is not meant to be. Of course it's dramatic, but it didn't really come across that way. Special effects, as I told you, is amazing, especially the water scenes. There was one time I was thinking, was this actually filmed on location? I'm not 100% sure. I haven't checked out any of the makings yet, but there's got to be something that was taken from real life, because damn, if it's full CG, it looks so good. It's really hard pressed to tell from the real. CG to real, which is amazing with this full CG. But I have a stinking feeling, I haven't, like I said, I haven't checked any of the makings. We must have got some real footage. And then the ending, great battle scenes and all that cool stuff. And like I said, older brother died, which I thought was a shame, because I actually quite like his character. I actually wanted to know more about him, because second brother is kind of like your usual one-and-mill kind of, how do you say, teenage kid gets himself in trouble, and the older brother or the dad comes in and fixes his problem. Kind of seen that already, done there, been there, done that, So that's a shame to see him do that. And there was a scene as well near the end where Spider, the Colonel's son, he got adopted by Jake and them lot. So it's almost like a foster kid. I think it's about 15, 16 year old. And there's a bit at the end where Zoe Saldana's character, she's like getting revenge for her son, and she's like hunting down and killing them by bow and arrows and knives, all these soldiers. And Spider was hiding behind something and was looking at her, and he was getting scared, and I was getting scared. Her eyes when she was killing the humans, which I totally understand, getting revenge for your son, of course. And then there's a scene that's almost like man to man where Jake saved his daughter, and then the Colonel Stephen's character holds Sigourney Weaver's character as hostage. And then Zoe Saldana comes in and holds Spider, which is the Colonel's son's hostage. So first she's like, you let my daughter go or kill your son, for example. And there's a bit where she scratches his chest and she's about to stab him. And then, of course, Stephen, the Colonel's character, he lets Sigourney Weaver go. So it kind of shows that the Colonel does have some sort of humanity in him. But they didn't really answer the question. Is a bit where, well, speaking about then the big fight one-on-one, and then the ship goes down and so on. And of course, Sam Worthington character beats the Colonel, and they walk on the water, and then all survive. They've got helping hand here and there. Spider saves his dad. I like that scene because he wasn't going to do it, but he turned around and he's like, oh, you know what? He's still my dad, and he did, almost save my life, sort of thing. And he saved him, so the Colonel survived, which is, I'm pretty happy. I quite like the Colonel character. But then he asks the kid to come with him, but he denies him and swims to the Sam Worthington's family. But there's a question I wanted to know, though, was I think they kind of skipped him. Hope they mentioned it in the second one. Then again, or in the third movie, you've got to wait at least another 5 years for that answer. I wanted to know, if I was Spider, I would have turned around to Zoe Saldana and said, was you going to stab me? Was you going to stab me and kill me? Really? That's what I wanted to find out, because I don't think she would as a bluff, but at that moment, the way that Cameron set it up, it was 50-50 in my mind. I wasn't sure she was going to actually do it or not. But if I was Spider's character, I would have asked Zoe's house and said, would you have stabbed me? But anyway, definitely watch this movie. I think it's a great movie. It didn't have to impact as the first one did. I don't think any film did, because 3D was at its time. It was the best 3D movie, even to this date. So it didn't have the wow factor as the first one. This one has more action. I felt the action was better. Special effects is better, of course, technology and all that. Overall, I would still give it an 8 out of 10. I would say I enjoyed them both about the same. It's not going to break anything new, but like I said, the story is pretty basic. Nothing to write home about. The dialogue, cringy and sometimes unintentionally funny. Action scenes, top-notch. Special effects, out of this world. Yes, I'm looking forward to the third one. I probably won't see it again because it is a long film, and like I said, the middle bit, especially the middle hour, did drag along a bit. So, still good. Definitely recommend it. I give it 8 out of 10. Anyway, I'd like to say thank you for staying to the end, and please do subscribe for more Talking Geeky stuff. Until next time, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. And please stay safe. Goodbye.